All right, I want to welcome Matt Jenkins, running for Congress in the 4th District of New Jersey. Before I welcome you, I want to let the viewers know this is Harmony Power broadcast, and what we've done with children and why I bring on these leaders and future leaders to the show is we've established the first mandated anti-bullying program in a major worldwide city, Elizabeth, New Jersey. In that, kids have 33 days to change the world using their gifts and talents. And this is the most powerful way to deal with bullying, because when kids love who they are, they don't bully. It's as simple as that. So I want to welcome you, Matt, and I want to, we were talking earlier, and I want you to share with the audience that's watching. You told me a little bit about your past with children, and I was very touched by that, because it just says what kind of person you are and what's possible, is with these future leaders. I don't care what party they come from. I care about the kind of human being that you are, and that's why I have you on the show. So please share it.
Sure. I will show you. I'll share the second one. I was working at a gym well, I was the manager, but I was also a trainer. And a mother brought her son in, and they joined, and she said like he needs a trainer. And I said, well, he can work out before then. She was like, no. She goes, he will not only hurt himself, he will hurt people around him. I need him to be with a trainer. Um, so when I finally got to meet him, he was, I don't know, was 14 years old, I believe, and he was like 6'6", tall African American kid. And I was like, okay, like we have an athlete here, which was terrible for me to like just picture that in my head, because one thing he was not an athlete. He was incredibly timid. So we started working together, just doing like simple things, simple workout things. Then became more about play, more about sports, which he really liked. And he was all about basketball. It's all he wanted to do. And I worked with him for a while, and it was really great. And I saw him grow over time. And his mother was actually working with another one of my trainers. But it wasn't until I think maybe 3 years later, I ran into his mother, and she grabbed me. She goes, Matthew, I know you're not going to remember me. And I was like, of course, I know exactly who you are. She goes, I got to tell you about my son. I'm actually getting a little emotional thinking about it. He left basketball and he loved volleyball.
Wow.
And he
Okay.
was a star of his volleyball team. But as a junior, I believe the coach left.
Hmm.
So there was no team. This kid stepped up and became the coach.
Wow.
He was like, guys, let's just get together. And they kept going. So he like coached the team for like a couple of weeks before they were able to get another teacher in. But even then, it wasn't a volleyball coach. So like he was mainly the coach, and just did like a phenomenal job. And his mother was just beaming with pride. And yeah, like I said, I'm a little emotional just thinking about that kid. Like, what a great kid. And I was so happy to hear it.
It speaks volumes that you believed in him, and imagine all the people he's impacting in his life as a result of meeting you.
Yes.
It says a lot about the kind of human being you are, right? So you're running for Congress, people hear about everything else, but this is a human interest story, what you just shared. So I'm touched by that. So let's talk about also, what your big concern is, and as far as your district and what needs to happen as far as people, and what really need what how are you going to protect people, and particularly the children, I think about too.
So on a large scale, one of my favorite parts about this whole process running in 2022 and now running this time has been getting to know all the people in all the stretches of the district. Um, I go to municipal meetings, I go to municipal club meetings. I go to beach cleanups and I meet the people there. I go in Bricktown, we had something called the long table. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a giant long table and we all sit down to eat. Nobody really talks politics. It was all just about a bunch of people in the community getting together to break bread. It was really great. Um, and then just getting to know everything from the seniors right down to the kids. It's been my favorite part about the entire process. What's important to me and why I fight for this
Hmm.
is my opponent has been in office for 44 years.
Hmm.
First off, it's enough. He ran with Jimmy Carter. Many of your viewers might
Sorry,
not.
I'm sorry. I just, because having run for Congress, I hear you because
Yeah,
I don't understand why anybody holds a seat in Congress, figure which party, right? To me,
yeah.
these terms should be 2 to 4 year terms. You're in and out, and enough of this long haul. People they need changeover. We need new faces, new blood, like what you are, like that energy that you have. That we need that. It's not about political party. How do you have the same person in there? Anyway, I just went off the tangent. I'm with you. Go
No,
ahead.
no problem, because it does get actually a little bit worse. He moved his entire family to Virginia during Reagan's first term. So when he goes home on the weekends, he goes to Virginia. When Congress is in recess, he's in Virginia. At Christmas time, he's in Virginia. Not
Wow.
that you can't come down here. He says he has an address, but like I'm here. A couple of weeks ago, I was down in the tent city visiting the homeless people down in Ocean County, talking to them and seeing what they need. When
Yeah.
people need me, like,
Hold on 1 second. I was
sure.
homeless as a kid with my mother
Oh,
for a few years. She had drug addiction. It was like out of a movie. So I went through a lot of trauma. You touched my heart there again. What did you talk to the homeless people about?
whatever they wanted to talk about, honestly. I walked in, and of course, they are very suspicious of, somebody like me, like walking through. And then, I could see them looking at me. There were tents everywhere, and they were peeking out. And I went and I met this woman. Her name was Kathleen, and she's in her tent. And I was getting anxiety at the idea if I ever had to be there.
Right.
And this woman was excited to be able to have that. And, this is a woman who doesn't have anything, yet she got up, she did her hair. I don't know the last time it had been washed. She had a little bit of makeup on. She had what to her were nice clothes. She wanted to introduce me to her little dog. And we just sat there and chatted. And there were a few people like that. And it turns out they have monthly incomes. These are older people with Social Security with just not quite enough money to stay in a house. These were not lazy people. Addiction is such a big part of it. None of these people were addicts. They were just people with not enough money to be able to afford a place. Um, and there were a number of them like that. There were two children when I was there. They were actually leaving quite soon because the person I was with from an organization called Just Believe, they were able to help them. And it was really great though, because they were having a little bit of trouble getting the process moving. And the guy that I was with, his name is Dan, gave him his phone number. He's like, you call me tomorrow morning, I'll take care of this. So like I knew they were taking care of it, and it was really great. Um, but let's talk about more as far as, when it comes to children. The biggest thing that I always hear, and unfortunately I hear it from, the other side of the aisle, me being a Democrat, they're a Republican, is it starts at the home. It's up to the parents. Well, I think it's like 4 million families have protected services like enter their lives. 4 million families, and this is every year. So, and oftentimes it's simple poverty. It's not any kind of abuse or anything like that. Like it's just simple poverty. And you have kids being taken away from their parents where people like they mean well, but instead of saying, okay, like what services could this family use to help them stay on their feet and allow that child to stay with the parents or with the family, it's usually minor as compared to pulling a child away from a family, putting him in an orphanage, putting him into the foster system at major expense and just incredible trauma of having to go through that and being pulled away from your family. So like that's one of the important things. I studied homelessness a little bit at a program of just a few years ago, and there is so much we can do, and it is so much less expensive than what we do because of politics and because of people's attitudes. We put $10,000 band-aids on what could be $100 fixes. Because if I try to fix it and give somebody for $100, all of a sudden it's socialism. I'm giving to the lazy, like just name the different things. Then it's like, well, okay, well, I have to do this. And I'm like, fine, I don't want my tax dollars going to it. And they don't realize that a family of four, like you said, you're working in New York City, a family of four gets put up a month, it's like $9,000 a month, where I could give the family some food money and suddenly like the kid flourishes, the family flourishes. So instead of like $500 a month for food, I'm paying $10,000 a month for an apartment somewhere. So it's what can be done. It's not, and I hate when I say this, but it's true. We have homeless because we don't care enough. It's as simple as that. You have
Okay.
an empty house, you have a family, put them in the house, not homeless anymore.
There's a lot of factors. I'll add
Of
to it.
course.
You've definitely stirred my emotions a bit. And I appreciate everything you said, and it resonates with me. Yeah, we have a lot of abandoned buildings that could be used to develop where they're, kind of like these small units, very small units, like a minimalist approach. And you can have a situation where they're rentals, you have a situation where people can buy at a very low price. These things have been done where they're not just sitting there, and then whoever owns it gets a tax break. There are zones that they can do that with, and really create a situation where people can become productive members of society. Having a dwelling is a big deal. Yes, having food goes further with that. Vertical agriculture was something I've talked about, and I'm connected to somebody in Pennsylvania who's a powerhouse with that. We want to bring that into all the schools, because if kids are eating healthier, look, food is their brain function, right? So if you talk
Absolutely.
food, they cannot function, right? They're not moving. They're taking movement away from schools. And I've been in fitness my whole life. You have to move. You have to eat healthy, right? You need a roof over your head. So the essentials are not there, but they wonder why kids are out of control, right? Now, the gun control thing, we talked about it briefly. We have to enforce what we have, which is not enforced. And no, it's certainly no kid should have access to a military style weapon for any reason or no reason. Like nobody in this country should have access to that, because that's only for military people. So there are basic things that need to occur that I see it. And the solutions are simple. The system is complex. And the reason why you're hitting walls, and I'll give you this, the truth of it, is that it's big business for them to have sick people, to have criminals, because the prison systems are funded by the corporations. So there's a lot of money being made through corporations by criminality. So homelessness feeds that. That's what it is. They don't want functioning people, productive, and that's just not like the medical system. It's like war. All of that is big business. So that's what you're up against, you know. But the truth is, if you go in picking the one thing, like I want to ask you, what's the one thing you'd want to change going in? The one simple thing you could change running for Congress right off the bat, the first bill you want to sign, the first thing you want to nail to uplift and change it. What would you do for homelessness?
Oh, for homelessness. There's not a simple answer to that, because first you need education. People need to know why people are homeless. Like where you said you have programs going on in New York City, one of the top reasons for homelessness in New York City is domestic abuse.
Well, my program in New York City is Harmony Power. It's an anti-bully organization. So
Right.
homeless is a whole other thing. I was homeless as a child, which empowered me later on. But what I'm saying to you is that there's a whole host of things people can do. But what's the one thing you think you could do as a starter? There's always has to be that first piece that someone picks to run with.
Sure, that's a difficult question because, like you said, and I like how you put it, like the answer is simple but not easy. You
It's
know, you have an empty house, you have a family, you put them
like
inside, they're
you
not
have
homeless anymore.
solutions, right? But the people are
Right,
complex because you're dealing
right,
with greed and you got to overcome that idea, right?
right. So something that I have found is politicians at the top, well-meaning as they might be, they don't know what happens below them, and not everybody along the way. And again, I'm talking if everybody's well-meaning and there's no corruption, it doesn't mean that they have the expertise to be in the place that they're at. And I was speaking to one group. They had a one of those health vans where you can go get your blood pressure and a bunch of blood work and everything. And it's like, we made an announcement. We were parked over at the Walmart, but nobody came. Well, Mike lives behind the tree at a certain place, and the people who work with them know where Mike is. They will, so they were like, look, the next time you do that, you park it here, and I will get Mike, who lives behind that big tree over there, Kathleen, who's over in the tent city. Like, the top is not speaking to the bottom. No matter how well-meaning they might be, they don't know how to actually solve the problem, and how do they get the resources to the people who actually need it.
So you want to be that guy?
Yeah, I want to, be in Congress and be
Yeah,
having the
right.
conversations with the people who are in the woods and put the whole piece together. Because what I see often, and not just with homeless, with so many different things, when I see mismanagement, is so much effort and so much money goes into the infrastructure to help that there's no money left over to help. So like you talked earlier about having a minimalist type of building, you take a warehouse, you make a minimalist type of accommodations to give it to people, where other people are saying like, look, we're going to build a brand new building and it's going to have an exercise facility and a kitchen and all this stuff. And like all the money that could have helped people goes into this building. And now you put 7 people in the building.
Right.
It doesn't help any, where those millions of dollars could have built out that warehouse, and you could be sleeping 50 people a night with services that they need to get them to be productive, where they can leave the facility and go off on their own.
Yep.
So yeah, so I guess if you want to say like one thing that I would do is I want to put all those pieces together to make them work better and get all the people talking to each other. Because again, the person working with the homeless in the woods has no access to the congressman.
So you want to bridge the gap between the leaders and the people. I don't like saying top and bottom, but if we have to view it that way, because I think everyone's the same, but yeah, the top and bottom for this matter. People who are inner city struggling have access. There's a communication that's happening. Therefore, there's also an empathy, right? So they're not so disconnected. You want to kind of bridge that gap.
Yes.
That's very admirable, and that's a very admirable goal. That's not something you hear normally, and when we have this kind of conversation. So, on that note, what I want to do is I want to honor you from this talk, right? So, first, I want to honor you for that story that you told me earlier, with how you impacted this child, which is symbolic of many others that you did the same. But it was a story that you picked on your past on how you empowered this child, and this person became a great leader as a result, impacting countless people. That's number one. Then I want to honor you also because you actually went into a homeless place. You didn't go in like just do research, and which you did research, but you went in to touch, feel, have a conversation, not just talk about things. You actually went in there, and that touches me from my background, which you knew nothing about till we met today. So this is an award that we give to countless people. It goes to a lot of children, but it goes to people like you that are making a difference in the world. Certificate award at Jenkins has been awarded this certificate for dedication, commitment, and outstanding efforts in promoting harmony in the world. I'll be sending this to you electronically, as it's well earned.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So is there any other things that people who are watching should know about you, that they should expect from you moving forward as you're going to try to get this big role as a congressman and overcome the odds?
Well, sure. One of the biggest ones that's on the ballot this year, literally across the country, is women's rights. The misinformation around abortion care for women, it's rampant. Most people want to look at it as like an irresponsible, like young person who doesn't want to practice safe sex, but women are dying. The infant mortality rate is going up. When you have these abortion bans in certain areas, in statistically significant numbers, new students, medical students who are going for their residency are avoiding these states. They don't want the government telling them how to practice medicine. And you are going to have medical deserts in these states. I believe that is between a woman and her healthcare provider, and the government has absolutely no business interfering with that because they wouldn't do it to a man. My opponent says there should be no exceptions, even to protect the woman's health. He wants to criminalize contraception and has added language to bills that would change the definition of rape. It's extreme. So that would be one of the first things I'd want to do is not just pass a law to protect it, but guarantee that protection in the United States Constitution.
I'll tell you, I believe in women's rights as well. And, I don't want to get too involved in this conversation because the Harmony Power is about the children, and that was the main focus.
Yep.
But I do believe, but I wanted to say that because I did run for Congress and I was a person behind Kennedy that, I believe in, yes, protecting baby to a certain extent. And there are certain parameters and certain ways that these things could be done. But women having the right to their body and their choice, I believe in that too. So it's that balance is still they're still trying to figure out between the right and left. But I definitely lean towards the women having a choice. I do.
It's a difficult subject to broach because religion plays a part and people have their own personal feelings. But I need people to know the facts. Like the idea of my opponent says that Democrats want abortion right up until birth. It's absurd. It's a lie. Trump says they're doing it after birth. Last time I checked, that was murder. Like It just doctors simply don't
really crazy. Yeah,
do that.
I agree with you. It gets really crazy.
Right.
There is a way of it being done. With a certain trimester. When it's a full-on baby, I think everyone would be concerned about that, right? But people have a right to a certain point to abort, because certainly if a child is unhealthy or the mother's unhealthy or they just can't do it, it's their choice. I agree with you.
If the fetus is dead at 8 months, you cannot take it out. It's still called an abortion. And women are dying because they're going to the hospital, they're in pain, and the doctor's like, I can't do anything. You're going to have to wait.
I think that's a nightmare. I do.
Yeah, I cannot imagine what that is like for a woman. Like I simply can't imagine. You were looking forward to a baby, you want a baby, and not only did it die, it's still sitting inside you, and you're just waiting for it. It happened to a friend of mine at 7 months, and she passed the baby at home by herself.
What I find interesting is I don't think any of the women are signing the bills with abortion. It's all men.
Well, that's
Just saying, we have a whole lot to say when it's not even our bodies. So I think that's another issue with this. You don't see a whole bunch of women coming together saying, "Hey, let's all, go against abortion." They know deep inside that they could not, something horrible could happen to them and or their baby, and they should have that right.
right.
So, but it's certainly an interesting end to my broadcast, but I felt that obviously it's a topic that's passionate for a lot of people. So I'm glad that you brought it up. I am.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I think you're a terrific person, and the world is a better place if people like you enter the race and win and lead. I can honestly say that. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time.